A. Today I'm sort of concluding something from my spam series. I've made a PowerPoint with what this series and my reflections on the first couple of tournaments have led me to. Let me show you what. So this is my announcement. I guess it's an announcement. I'm building a compendium, a pack, that's going to address the balance of bold action. For me, game balance is about balancing the different elements of the actual game experience. Like, they shouldn't matter equally much, but they should all matter a certain amount, and they should all be like, there should be a balance between them, so that the game doesn't turn into one thing, right? So with bold action, that needs to, you need to be able to play a number of different nations. Right now, that's, I think, in a fairly good place for bold action, more or less, right? The minor nations are not in a good place. There should be a wide variety of army builds that is possible to play, so that different play styles are accommodated and that you can win with. There should be a large variety of units that you can use, so that it doesn't turn into there's just one thing that's like optimized and you can win with. There should be a large variety of unit types. All of them should be usable. So infantry, artillery, vehicles, and other weird stuff, right? All of that should be playable and shouldn't really outshine anything else. There should also be a balance between the different elements of the actual gameplay, so between maneuvering, shooting, close quarters, and morale. Those are the elements that we have of gameplay. And the missions should be balanced in that both players have a chance to win, an equal chance to win. And it doesn't really come down to you having to have a special army type in order to win. It should be, there should be possibilities even if you don't have that unit or that unit, right? You should be able to win all missions. And then there should be a balance between how random stuff is. We have dice rolls in bold action. Chess, for instance, doesn't. So that's, chess is one extreme. Bold action is somewhat away from chess because of all the dice rolls, but still, with what we're seeing, that the good players are always winning tournaments, I think that there is an element, a balance there of randomness and skill that I think we need to preserve in order for this game to be what it is. And I think that's important. So that is the things that I think needs to balance in order to make a game of bold action fun, right? That it's engaging, it's interesting, it's something where you can play it and feel like it engages your mind. How do I optimize this? How do I win? But at the same time, are there multiple ways of doing that? Right now, for me, there is a lot of things about V3 that really, really works. The shooting phase, it's brilliant. It really works. The fact that you can already start killing the opponent in turn one, that it creates a very much a quicker game, a game where you're already doing stuff in turn one, which is really brilliant. And this sort of ties in with the fact that, like, every time you shoot now, it feels that there's an impact, right? Because at least you're doing pins almost all the time, right? And I know that I've said that pins don't matter, and they really don't do that much. But there are certain cases where pins can still be beneficial, just not in the way we're used to them. Cover saves, I also think cover saves actually work. There's a lot of people and I was one of them. When we heard that cover saves was coming to bold action, we're like, that's a bad idea. But I don't think it slows down the game massively. I am not sure that they are necessary either, but it doesn't slow down the game. It does create a shooting phase where you're now very likely to hit, which means that pins are available easily, right? So that combination has made it really easy to put pins on enemy units. I also think that the ability in V3 to customize your lists to build whatever it is that you feel you want, and you see this quite a lot on my channel, where a lot of people are sending me their lists, and they're all weird and wonderful and wacky, because you can do so many weird things now with the force organization charts. The ability to build like extreme lists. Go and watch some of my videos with Alistair, who builds some extreme lists here in version 3. That's possible. But you can also build like very, very historical lists. All of that really is possible in version 3. I think the nerf to flamethrowers is one of the more successful nerfs. It has not meant that flamethrowers has gone away completely, but it has meant that you're seeing way less flamethrowers being used, and they are not as overpowered a weapon as they were in version 2. So they're still good, but they're much more of a glass cannon type of thing, where you can hit really hard, but you're also very likely to lose the unit. I think one of the things that I especially enjoy right now is the boost to infantry-borne machine guns. So I am running, quite often in my lists now, I'm running MMGs. I am also running LMGs, and I'm seeing this done by almost every player I meet, run a couple of LMGs, right? We never used to do that. And that's a nice change. It's a really nice change. It looks balanced. I also think that point blank deadliness sort of balances out the cover save thing a little bit, because point blank is really deadly now, because you can't go down and survive point blank, right? So that sort of balances out a little bit. Point blank shooting is now where you sort of can clear out units. And I think there was a nice little boost to Arab servers. Was it enough to make them viable and playable? Maybe not. If you have flak, dealing with enemy airplanes can be fairly easy. But I like that they've been boosted a little bit. They aren't as detrimental as they used to be, and you can have some people doing quite well with them. I like that. All of that is good balance, in my opinion. But there are also some things that I think are a little bit unbalanced right now. I think we can safely conclude that double shot forward artillery observers, especially because you can spam them, you can have multiple of these. In effect, you can lock down the enemy for most of the game. If I bring 4 artillery observers, that's 300 points in a 1250 list. I can easily afford that. That's 300 points, and I'm shooting so you get hit by 6 barrages. That is all the game where you are pinned down and can't do a thing, especially if you have to clump up in a quarters deployment. That is not fun, right? Depriving your opponent, well, for you it might be fun, for me it might be fun if I'm doing that, but depriving the opponent of the ability to influence the game for 6 turns, I'd argue that is unbalanced and not very fun. People come to play the game, not to sit there and roll rally dice, right? I also think that we can safely conclude now that armor is unbalanced. It was unbalanced in version 2. You couldn't take tank tournaments to regular tournaments and not expect to just power through everyone else. Now everyone is doing it, and you have to take armor in order to win tournaments. Every single tournament we've had so far has shown that the people in the top brackets have armored platoons. And we're seeing more and more that people are just taking the minimum size rifle platoon and then spending all their points on armor. And I'd argue that this has turned from an infantry skirmish game into a tank game. And I'm not sure that is balanced, and I'm not sure that is where most people want the game to go. So that might be unbalanced as well. Go back and see my former slide about what needs to balance in the game. You need to have different unit types that are balanced. I think right now tankettes, light tanks are overpowered, right? Because people can take them. I mean, look at my Battle Snails review, where you could easily take 10 plus tanks. And yeah, you're not absolutely certain that you'll win your games if you do that. But you're absolutely certain that the enemy can't really hurt you, right? No one has enough anti-tank to kill all of that. I also think that multi-rocket launchers, despite the recent nerf, have always been a little bit... because it's an element of randomness. It's an element of randomness introduced in the game where randomness starts to sometimes trump skill. And I've always said so multiple times on this channel, that I dislike spamming multi-launchers. I dislike playing against spammed multi-launchers. I think one is okay. That gives you sort of an element of skill where you have to spread out, so you have to counter what all of that I think is okay. But having that Alpha Strike unit of one's company commander and 4 Nebelwerfers for less than 100 points or whatever, man, no, it's less than 200 points, but still, you get what I'm meaning, right? It's just, it's not fun necessary for the opponent, and it doesn't promote skill. It promotes randomness. Can you roll the sixes, right? I also think a lot of people, and anyway, say that commanders might be a problem, because what they mean that all of a sudden we all have so many command bubbles where we get plus, right, +2, +4, and those command bubbles actually mean that your unit is pinned doesn't really mean what it did in version 2, right? You can still throw a lot of pins at units, which is great, but it's very rare that units will fail their order test because you've got +2, +4 all the time. All the time. Because there's so many more officers on the board, so at least for order tests, pins doesn't matter as much as they did before. And that may be unbalanced again, because morale is such an important part of this game. Managing morale, figuring out, do I want to chance it? That was an important part of version 2. Do I want to chance it? Do I want this unit to try? Even though I've got 3 pins, do I want it to try? Maybe I'll just, rally instead. I don't do that anymore. I just stick an officer next to them, and if I don't have an officer right next to him, I run an officer to them and then take the test, and most of the time I make the test. It's very rare that my units don't do what I want them to do. So pins, I don't feel they matter. Dog mines have always been an Achilles heel for this game. They were not terribly effective in real life. They are completely the best anti-tank weapon of the game in version 2 and in version 3. 4+ to hit, never modified. I mean, that's just so goddamn powerful, right? So this is maybe like multi-rocket launchers, armor, artillery observers, all of that, maybe units that are out of whack with how powerful they are with the balance. And then I think that Warlord Games made a mistake in nerfing close combat as much as they did. Even though I'm a close combat player myself, right? You guys know me. I love my close combat. Last game I ran multiple units of Cossacks. It was glorious. They sabered through the enemy. Lovely. But they lost men every single charge, which is, I guess, more balanced, right? Version 2 close combat was not balanced. It was It was such an easy way of getting rid of enemy units. Now, close combat happens extremely rarely. Extremely rarely. You can have tournaments where you have like 2 or 3 charges in a whole tournament, which is, I think Warlord Games have nerfed close combat too far. So I think perhaps we need to look at maybe rebalancing that a little bit. Not much, I think, is needed, but some. And I also think we need to look at snipers, because if we look at tournament lists, snipers have gone away. They don't really have a role anymore. I've made videos about this, and other people have made videos about this, and it's basically all we're seeing right now. Yeah, some people are still running snipers, of course they are, but they don't have a dedicated role. It used to be that the snipers were hunting the small teams, right? The team weapons. Now, no. Nope. I have not lost a team to a sniper in half a year. I haven't. The snipers are not killing me at all. And I run multiple light mortars in all my list. I run multiple AT rifles. I run MMG teams. I haven't lost a single team to a sniper for half a year. So they're not good. And I don't lose my officers either, by the way. So how to fix all of this? I am making it my mission to at least try, with the pack I'm building, to try to do some of the things here. I will try to make as few changes to the core rules as possible. I don't want to change the game. I will make as few changes as possible. I will change points as little as possible, and there's one thing where I think that should be changed, but the rest I will not go into, because as soon as you start messing around with the point setting, you're completely changing everything about the game, and I don't think that's going to be my job with this pack I'm building. I will also make every single change I'm making an option and not a mandate, so not something you have to do, something you can choose for your tournament. If you want to run my pack, you can choose this and this and this, and ignore that. If you don't like it, ignore it, right? I think that having those options, because we all enjoy the game in slightly different ways, there are different things we enjoy. I think the options are actually quite important. I think they are a good thing for the game, that you can have a nerf on dog mines, but you don't like what I've done with snipers. So it needs to be options, not mandates for me. I will also try and make some new balanced missions, and I'll include some missions that are not new but are balanced and well suited for tournament play, because if I make a pack, it is for tournament play. It's in order to create the fairest, levelest playing field that I can for tournament play. And within these frames, as few changes to the core rules, as few points value changes, making options, not mandates, and balanced missions, I will try and balance V3 in a pack. What I'm not doing is I'm not fixing every useless unit. Sorry, Goliath, I'm not doing it. I'm not fixing every useless national rule either. I looked at it, and we could start doing that, but then we're into homebrew, and that's not what I'm about. I'm about balanced tournament play. At some point, once we have all the minor nations and everything is out, we can look at that again and see if some of it needs adjustment. But right now, I'm not fixing any of the national rules. I'm not fixing any of the units that are underpowered. And I'm not fixing point costs. But I am building what I call the Commander's Compendium. And I'm building this along with David, who has been featured on this channel, a good friend of mine from the Danish national team. We're building this pack. We've had it out with playtesters, and as soon as all of the playtesters get back to us, we shall make a few adjustments and then release it to you guys. So I'm building a competitive pack. The Juggernauts did it back with the Jugger pack in version 2. I can do it for version 3. And in this pack, there will be suggested time limits for how much time does a game take. How much should it take? Again, suggested, not mandates. Because I know some people are slower than me. I finish all my games half an hour early for basically every single tournament I go to. So, like, these time limits are not my time limits. They're time limits that I see used most often in competitive play, and they work. I'm also including suggested dice caps. These will be, for some metas, very high because they are a reflection of the meta that I'm in, and at the same time, they're also an attempt to make sure that players who play a different style of army than me can still bring that. So people who are building MSU armies or Horde armies can still bring those armies. So they need to be a little bit higher than you would normally want people to play. Like, if you're for 1,000 points, if your standard average tournament list is 12 order dice for 1,000 points, then your maximum should still be around 20, because people should be allowed to go all the way up to that, right? If they can still finish on time, though. I'm also including suggested platoon caps. These, again, are just suggestions, but I think with the different points levels you can play a game, I think you need to limit how many platoons you can take. Because it just gets silly when you take 7 rifle platoons, in order to take forward artillery observers with every single one of them. Right? That gets silly really quickly. And it's one of the ways that us competitive whacker players try to beat the game, is by taking a lot of that platoon, right? Because I can spam stuff. I'm also including some optional unit restrictions on certain units, certain of the units that I've been talking about here. There will be certain restrictions that are suggestions for how you could restrict these units if you also find them to be a problem in your tournaments. I'm also including some optional rules changes. If you feel like me that there are certain things that are unbalanced in the rules, they're there. The rules changes are there. And I'm also including a mission pack that is with just missions that can be won by both players, that have been playtested, and that have been thought about. So you don't just roll up a useless combo in the rulebook, but this is actually missions that have been thought up, and some of them are completely brand new, by the way. Some of them have never been seen before in bold action. So there are some of them that I have written myself, and there are some of them that friends of mine have written that have been included, and they have been playtested. And I am also, at the end, there will be an FAQ. So if people ask me questions about the Commander's Compendium, it will all go into the FAQ at the end. That will be updated all the time, the FAQ, as will the competitive compendium itself, with any questions that you guys may have as we go along. So here's hoping Warlord Games and Alessio sees this. I don't know. I know he has seen some of my videos. He's commented on one of them at least. So I would love to be involved if you guys at Warlord Games want to listen to some of my ideas. If not, well, I'll just put out my compendium and hope that somebody can use it. Thank you so much, David, who's been working really hard on this and who's doing all the graphic work, and the compendium right now looks lovely, but it's not done yet. But once you see it, you'll see it's really looking cool. Thank you, Michael Christensen, was the initial idea generator for me. Thank you to the Danish national team. We talked about a lot of this on one of our road trips to a tournament. They had a lot of the initial feedback. And thank you to all the people. There's so many. I can't name you all, because right now the compendium is like in the hands of 30 playtesters, right? So there's a bunch of playtesters who I really should thank, all of them. and I will try and make sure they're all mentioned in the pack itself. Thank you all for doing all of that work for us. Yeah, that was it. I hope you guys enjoy the compendium once it is released. And I hope you guys sort of can follow along with some of the thought process that goes behind this compendium. If you don't enjoy my rules changes, leave them. But at least consider running some of the missions. They're really cool. Right. That's it. See you next time. Cheers.